Starting from midnight last night, Azerbaijan launched a major attack against Armenia, shelling the southern and eastern towns and cities of Goris, Jermuk, Kapan, Artanish, Ishkhanasar, Vartanis, and Sotk. Fighting has been ongoing for 12 hours now, and Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has confirmed that there are 49 dead on the Armenian side, with that figure expected to rise. Joining me now is CivilNet host and analyst Eric Hacopian. So Eric, Azerbaijan's aggressive actions have resulted in 49 dead on the Armenian side. This is completely different in a way from previous aggressive actions in that cities and towns deep within Armenian sovereign territory have been shelled, including civilian targets. What was your reaction? What caused this major attack, in your opinion?
This was not a surprise. Where and how is a surprise, but this has been building up. We've seen this for a couple of days. Everyone expected this. The primary reason it's not a surprise is because Azerbaijan, since September 27 to 2000, has a formula. It's called aggression-to-concession. There's a pipeline. So every aggression brings them something. And until you break that pipeline, you will not change their behavior. So that's entirely to be expected. After all, you're dealing with a gangster state, not a normal one. And if you tell gangsters they can get away with criminality, they will continue with the criminality. What probably triggered today's attacks were probably two things. One is the sort of impasse in the negotiations, when Armenia is not willing to make concessions in the quote unquote, peace treaty or whatever they call it. And the second one is what happened with the Russians being routed on the Kharkov front in the Ukraine war, because there's a direct correlation between what is perceived to be Russian weakness in Ukraine and Azeri aggression against Armenia and Artsakh. The only exception to that were the August events that were locally driven, but usually Bakhmut and all of them, when you see the Russians having a hard time in Ukraine, the Azeris become, or the Aliyev in this case, becomes far more aggressive. So that's what has brought us to this day. And Pashinyan has said in the past that there is no alternative to the peace agenda. What do you make of that statement now? I don't think anybody in this country wants to hear that goddamn phrase again, because there is an alternative peace agenda. It's not up to us, because it takes two to tango. He might want peace, but the other side is not interested in peace. They're interested in ethnically cleansing Artsakh and a weak, intimidated Armenia that they can get anything that they want from. So that phrase is meaningless at this point. And I think what we're seeing here from him is, he's a very shrewd politician. He understands what people want. People want peace. But there's a big difference between shrewdness and wisdom. Shrewdness tells people what they want to hear. Wisdom is what they need to know. And a shrewd politician talks about peace in this instance. Someone who has wisdom talks about preparing people for what is to come in a realistic manner. So I think he needs to drop that rhetoric, essentially become someone that tries to unify the country in a mission, in a total, where you bring in all assets of the society and the state and the diaspora to defend the country and to defend Artsakh. Everything else is conversation.
And also, Eric, you have spoken in the past numerous times that there is a need to create a garrison state, to create an impregnable fortress. What do today's events say about this, in your opinion?
Yeah, they're the best confirmation of it. The world will not help us. The world will not save us. The world, for the most part, is on the side of the aggressor. Let's just be very clear about that. We are the only ones who can save ourselves. We're the only ones who can defend ourselves. We had this foolish notion 2 years ago, before the start of the war, the Azeri military was supposed to be perpetually incompetent, a la early 90s. And now many people think they're like the German army circa 1940. Well, neither of those two things are true. We actually have quite the ability to defend ourselves if we actually put our minds to it and build the defensive systems that we want. And even today, for the most part, up to now, they've been pushed back in all of their efforts, in most of their efforts to make big inroads into Armenian territory. They've been pushed back, what appears to be from videos taking heavy casualties. So I think we need to, that garrison state needs to be now, it needs to be today. And the entirety of the society needs to join in creating it. We need to get away from all of the political divisions, revolution, none of that matters anymore. There should be no internal opponents and no enemies. This is a time of unity on everyone's part. And we need to focus on the task on hand, and building the garrison state to defend the country is entirely doable. And it should be done. And I suspect it will be done. And we will turn this around, because this situation of aggression that leads to more aggression is simply unsustainable. And at some point, you have to change that formula.
I also want to ask, I want you to tell me how you assessed the reaction of several international actors, once again, many including EU Special Representative to the South Caucasus, Toivo Klar, several Washington officials and others are calling on both sides to de-escalate. Despite this, there is plenty of footage now of Armenian towns and cities being shelled, but I haven't seen any footage of an Azerbaijani town or city being shelled. So what do you think of this reaction telling both sides to de-escalate?
They're taking Aliyev's side. Let's just be clear about that. There is no both-sidism here. There's one side who's the aggressor. When you're bombing Jermuk, that's not both-sidism. So they're actually, if you're in a fight between the aggressor and someone that aggressor is attacking, if you are not calling it out for what it is, you're taking the side of the aggressor. So we should just take it at that. We need to focus on our own resources. No matter what they say or what they do, they will not save us. They have their own interests, they have their own agendas. The only body that has an agenda of defending this country is this country. So we need to entirely focus on that, very much like the Ukrainians have. I mean, I know there's huge differences, massive Western help. But even without the massive Western help, there were massive internal reforms in the way they set up the country, their defenses, and their approach to the war that we can emulate. So I think that's what we have to be looking at. I'm not surprised by their reaction because in so many ways they've been on the other side and all of this, and we need to take this for what it is. When it comes to Sesto specifically, in some ways, Aliyev is testing the Russians and the Russian response to this. Right now, we don't even have a word from them. But in a way, Armenia is actually testing Sesto by actually calling it out. Because if Sesto does not act in this case, or is not mobilized in this case, I'm not even sure if Sesto even exists on anything more than paper in reality, then we need to look at other places, and this notion that we need to play the Russian game in security is done. We need to look at other places much more openly and much more freely. Western countries, Western systems. Because ultimately, if they do not act in this case, in which sovereign Armenian territory has been clearly attacked, then what good are they? In what context are they useful to our security? So the key thing is we need to look at what we can do for ourselves, and we can do plenty for ourselves. And that's what we need to focus on.
Okay. Well, Eric, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And continue following CivilNet for the latest updates on the situation.